Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mario Cristobal, the Miami Hurricanes heading on the road to play a really tricky USF team. And I say the word tricky because you look at this USF team, specifically on the offensive side of the football, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at you. They got a quarterback in Byron Brown that is not only an extremely good athlete, but he's extremely big and he's hard to bring down. And they're going to ride him not only as a passer, but also in the run game. You've seen this USF team give some Power Five programs some real problems in terms of what they can scheme up on the offensive side of the football, not only Alabama this year, but Alabama last year as well. Really excited to get into this matchup, talk about a few kind of key players and key matchups that I'll be looking at in this football game. Now, before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. And it's been a blast doing these preview and prediction episodes. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas has been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, we'd love to hear from you guys in the comment section as well, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me. That's kind of the beauty of doing these previews and predictions. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And I think we got to start with this USF offense that's putting up 32 and a half points per game, 35th in the country, specifically this rushing attack. They're going to want to run the football, but they're going to want to run the football in a ton of different ways. They got two really talented running backs, but this is obviously headlined by Byron Brown at the quarterback spot. Look, Alex Golish, USF's head coach, he also calls the plays. I think he's brilliant. I think he's going to be a Power Five, Power Four, I should say, head coach in the next couple of years. I think he's done a phenomenal job, not only revamping this USF team from a roster standpoint, but also from a schematic standpoint. Does a lot of different things that can put opposing defenses kind of in binds. And I think if you're Miami, the biggest question mark about this football game is how do you deal with Byron Brown? Like, this is a guy that not only are there going to be a lot of quarterback designed runs, but he's also really crafty in terms of getting outside the pocket, extending plays, and pushing the ball down the field. And so if you're Miami, you want to get after the quarterback, you want to affect him in the pocket, but you also want to make sure he stays in the pocket and don't give him that opportunity to get outside and burn you with his athleticism. You saw Daniel Richardson for Florida A&M. Again, it was limited success, but had some success. The plays that Miami gave up in that Florida A&M game had a lot to do with the athleticism of the quarterback. And I think that's going to help Miami. Like, they've seen a quarterback that can extend plays, get outside the pocket. They got burned on a few plays because of that. I feel like they're going to be better suited to deal with a guy like Byron Brown because of that experience. Now, I think the question is, how do you deal with it? One, you probably are kind of scrunching down on this offense because you look at USF and say, all right, 5.9 yards per carry. That's 16th in the country. But in the passing attack, a 53% completion percentage. That's 111th. 4.5 yards per pass. That's 127th. They really haven't shown a great ability to really push the ball down the field. And if you're Miami, I think one of the revelations of this season early on is how good the secondary has been. And I get you haven't seen elite passing attacks, but even against Florida, like limited throwing windows, limited busted coverages, you look at the numbers and say Miami secondary, which was by far our biggest question mark for this team heading into 2024. They're giving up 4 yards per pass attempt. That's fourth best in the country. And so this secondary has been game. And I look at that kind of matchup and say, I don't think that favors USF. They haven't really shown that ability to consistently push the ball down the field and hit explosive plays in the passing attack. And so now the question is, how do you deal with the rushing game for USF? And a couple of different ways you can do it. I'm not necessarily advocating for this strategy. Lance Guidry, hell of a lot smarter than me. I know he's going to scheme it up right. Do you maybe just take a little bit more? Do you lean more on your interior defensive line pass rush in this football game and tell guys like Elijah Alston and Tyler Barron, who have been freak shows rushing the passer off the edge, do you maybe tell them to not as much pin their ears back and be a little bit more concerned with keeping Byron Brown in the pocket and then leaning on the interior defensive line to really get after the passer? I think that might be the strategy for two different reasons. One, if you can keep Byron Brown in the pocket, I think you're feeling pretty comfortable about your chances to have success on defense. But I think more importantly, if you're Miami, I think one of the luxuries you have in this football game is, yeah, you have really good edge rushers who've been phenomenal throughout the first 3 weeks of the football season. You also got dudes on the inside of the defensive line that can get after the passer. And so maybe this game you're relying a little bit more on guys like Simeon Barrow Jr. on the inside, maybe kicking Akeem Mesidor to the inside, get after the passer that way, and then kind of have Tyler Banner, Elijah Austin, and company try to deal more with keeping Byron Brown in the pocket. I think you also have linebackers that are really athletic in space. Obviously, Kiko, but more importantly, Wesley Saint's been very, very good for Miami. I think you have the linebackers to kind of deal with Byron Brown getting out of the pocket as well. So if you want to use that quarterback spy, that is certainly an avenue to have success as well. But I think if you're Miami, there's really one goal you have in this football game. If you can keep Byron Brown as a pocket passer, where he's shown he's not as comfortable play as a football player, that's probably going to lead you to have the most success on the football field. Again, I think you feel pretty good about the secondary. USF's pass protection has not been very good, allowing a 10.8% sack rate. That is 122nd in the country. We obviously know Miami can get after the passer. You want to get after the passer, but you also want to make sure Byron Brown is staying in the pocket. And so that's probably the biggest key that you see in this football game. Again, going back to Florida A&M, that was really the only time Florida A&M was able to have any success on the offensive side of the football. Now, flipping sides, it's hard to see an avenue, and I think a lot of USF fans would agree with this. If Miami continues to play the way they've been playing on offense, I don't see how USF has a ton of success stopping them. And I think what makes Miami so special, we talked about this yesterday. Cam Ward's been phenomenal, right? He leads the country in touchdowns. He's second in the country in passing yards. What makes this Miami Hurricanes offense so difficult to defend is they can run the football. And I think Miami fans might be a little frustrated in terms of what they've seen from the run game, but you look at the numbers, 6 yards per rush. That's 13th best in the country. They've been running the football, not necessarily super explosive, but really efficiently. And I think that's one of the things that guys like Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher really specialize in is, hey, we don't take a lot of negative plays. Like it's going to be 2nd and 5. It's going to be 3rd and 1. We're going to stay on schedule and we're going to hit the explosive plays in our passing game. If you're USF, you have two choices. You could leave your safeties high, your two safeties high, and try to avoid Cam Ward being explosive down the field. But if you do that, I think you're just going to get the ball ran on you. And I think Miami's just going to grind this team kind of into the dirt. If you want to walk your safeties in, which has been what defenses have been really choosing to do against Miami, and saying, hey, Cam Ward and these wide receivers come and beat us. Well, guess what? Miami and Cam Ward have certainly been beating you on the outside, pushing the ball down the field. That's what makes this Miami Hurricanes offense, I think, so special this year. Last year, they could run the football, but they didn't really have that vertical passing attack with Tyler Van Dyke and then obviously struggling with the injuries. They ran the football pretty effectively last year, but they didn't have a complement in terms of pushing the ball down the field. Now they do. So if you want to light box Miami and try to avoid giving up the explosive plays to Cam Ward and these wide receivers, you're probably going to get the football run down you. But teams have been trying to stop the run. Again, I think this Miami Hurricanes offensive line is very good. Obviously, the running backs are very good. Teams are walking to their safeties in, one-on-one matchups on the outside, and Cam Ward's making these defenses pay. I think USF is going to have to pick one because I don't think they can have a light box and stop Miami in this rushing attack. So whatever they choose, I think Miami can have some success. Getting into the pick here, 17.5 points. I'm going to go with Miami, and I think you just got to trust your eyes. Like, there's a reason this spread is 17.5 points. We've seen USF play some Power 4 programs extremely tough, right? Alabama this year, Alabama last year. That being said, because of how multidimensional, how many different ways I think Miami can move the football in USF, I think they're going to put up a lot of points. And I think if you can keep Byron Brown in the pocket and limit him kind of having an impact on this football game from an athleticism standpoint, which I think Miami has the front seven to do, I don't see USF kind of keeping up with Miami on the scoreboard. I think there's a lot of teams that USF can keep up with on the scoreboard. I don't think Miami's defense is one of them, specifically with how good this front seven is. Give me Miami covering the 17.5 points. Before this season, I'd be a little concerned about this football game because Miami hasn't been very good on the road. Miami was very good on the road in the Swamp. I expect them to travel well here. I think running games travel. Veteran quarterbacks travel. Miami is a team that you feel more comfortable about taking on the road than you did the last couple of years. Give me Miami. I just think this team is a juggernaut right now, for lack of better terms. Going to be a really fun game. Again, ton of respect for Alex Golish and this USF offense, but I think Miami's just I think they're a well-coached team now, but I think more importantly, they just have so much firepower. I don't think USF can kind of match that. We'll close it out there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all